Screenwriting is a craft that literally takes years of experience to master. But there are a couple of things that you could have in mind that will get you writing in the right direction, developing the right habits, and you can eventually become a good writer. That being said, let's jump into it. Hello everyone, my name is Diego Alcocer Manrique and I have been writing for film for around 5 years. Now, a quick disclaimer before we start, this is not a screenwriting class. This is only a list of a couple of things that I learned throughout the years and that I wished I had known when I started. It would have helped me tremendously in my screenwriting journey. So I really want to pass on this information on to you guys and hopefully help you not make the same mistakes that I did when I started. But anyway, let's start with tip number 1, which is if you're writing about the forest, go camping. And what I mean by that is when you write, honestly, the sky is the limit. Your imagination is the limit. You could literally write about whatever topic you want. The problem with that is that sometimes when we are not fully immersed in whatever topic we're writing about, it happens that we start falling into cliches because we are not aware, because we haven't deep dived into that topic itself. So I really advise that whatever you're writing, try at least to get some information, try to live whatever you're writing about if you can, if it's possible, safe and legal. And if not, at least do a lot of research, interview a lot of people. That will help you not fall into those cliches and actually get your writing on the right path. Now, of course, right now, the situation we're living in, it's kind of hard to go out there and live stuff. So there's a lot of documentaries, there's a lot of resources you can write, there's a lot of people you could interview, as I mentioned before, for you to get those, get the meat, get the juicy part of whatever the topic you're writing about. And once you're in there, start writing something that's very unique, that's very yours. That would be tip number 1. Tip number 2 would be rules are meant to be broken. Now, when you start learning about screenwriting, they bombard you with a lot of formulas and a lot of things structure-wise that you must follow in order to have a decent or a good story. And those are only rules that are meant to give exactly that structure, but don't let those rules get in the way of whatever it is that you're writing. Always put the story, and if it feels right, it sometimes it is right. So go with your gut feeling when you're writing, and don't take those rules too seriously. For example, when I started out, there were a lot of people telling me that my character had to change. That was part of the whole thing of watching a movie. You want to see a character start in point A and then develop himself or herself or whoever it is into point B. Now, the problem with that is that I've actually read a lot of books on which characters don't necessarily change. Actually, that is part of the conflict, that they don't change. So, as I mentioned before, there are a couple of rules and things and advice that people are going to give you, but don't take them too seriously and just follow along with your story. Trust your heart, trust your gut, and use that advice if it fits for your story, but if it doesn't, then just let it go. Tip number 2 is the first draft is the block of marble. And what I mean by that is I took Aaron Sorkin's screenwriting masterclass. And if you haven't already, this is not a paid promotion or anything, but you should definitely go check it out. It's really good. And I remember there was this phrase that he said that really stuck in my head. And what he said is that if we were to make an analogy between sculpting and screenwriting, your first draft would be the block of marble. And then the rewrites would be the actual sculpting and polishing and getting your sculpture ready. That really changed the way that I wrote after I heard that, because I always try to get my first draft as close as possible, or at least that's what I thought, to my final version. But it will always be easier to rewrite than to actually start from scratch. So get that first draft as soon as you can, get all of those ideas down on paper, and then it will be much easier and actually better for the whole process to start writing, editing, showing it to certain people that you trust, and then working from there, having your block of marble, and then start sculpting and polishing. So that really changed the way that I wrote. It really made it even actually faster and a bit more enjoyable. So I will definitely advise for you guys to try that. So if screenwriting was sculpting, your first draft is only the first block of marble, and then the actual sculpting comes in the rewrites. Now, tip number 3, and this tip might cause some controversy between some of my screenwriting friends, but I would advise for you to write producible films. And what I mean by that is, when you're writing a film, the screenplay itself is not a finished piece of art. It's just kind of like the beautiful sketch of what it will eventually become a house, if we were to make an analogy with architecture. So it's always very healthy for you to see how whatever you wrote, how it got translated into a film. That's always really important because you can actually see how your writing was interpreted and translated into a visual medium. And I think that really can change the way you write for the better, because once you see the stuff you wrote, if it actually successfully was translated into film, of course, there's a lot of steps in between, but it can really make you write thinking about the film and not just writing for writing. So what I mean by producible films is that probably if you're starting out, you don't have a ton of budget to make a space opera. So try to write something that you can actually produce, or that you and your friends can produce, in order to actually get it done into a visual medium, into a film, and then use that learning experience for your next film, and then your next film. And then as you start gaining more experience and more context and more budget, that will be a very enriching experience. So I advise you to write producible films so you can see how they get translated into film, and that will really benefit your writing. Tip number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tip number 5, I lost count, I think. I don't know. Anyway, next tip is read a lot of scripts. Now, you can learn a lot from reading how the masters did it before. So I would advise that if you do have the habit of reading, find some scripts, read them online. There's a ton of scripts online from the, like legendary films that you can read, see how they were written, what made them special in order to be bought and then produced, or also how successfully was that piece of writing translated into a film. There's a bunch of resources you can find online. I'm going to link some in the description, in this video description, so you can check it out. And your writing can really benefit from it because you can see how the people who actually mastered the craft did it, and then you can start using some of those techniques and using some of the words they use even, or the way they explain certain things, the language they use in order to make a good film. So definitely read a lot of scripts, learn how the masters did it first, and then use that to develop your own style. Tip number 6 would be write things that already exist. And what I mean by that is take your favorite scenes from your favorite films and try to write them in a script before you've read the script, of course. And you should be trying to really nail down that visual image that you already have in your head because you saw it, because it's a film that you already saw, and put it into paper, describe it, put the dialogues in, put the annotations, try to do all of that, because that can really actually help you take an image that you already have very clear in your head and put it into paper. Now, what's convenient about this technique is that you can actually take films that they work and just put them into paper and exercise those writing muscles, so that when you have to start developing your own images in your head and putting them into paper, you already have the practice of doing that previously. So yeah, that's tip number 6. I actually have done that a couple of times in the past, and it really helps me out to really polish my use of language and the way I describe things in my screenplays. So go do that. Now, tip number 7 is a bit of an echo to the tip I told you guys before about writing producible films, because I really want to emphasize the fact that screenwriting is an unfinished work. In order for them to fully live their cycle, they should be translated into a film. So only write the parts that are necessary for your story to get across. Don't use extremely like elegant or fancy language or words. Just write whatever it's necessary for the story to get across. Don't take a lot of time and a lot of words to describe a lot of things, because that is actually the job of someone else, art directors, set dressers, etc., the director himself, etc., etc. So only try to get the story across. Use what's necessary to tell that story. If you have to describe something because it's important for the story, then by all means do it. But if it's not completely necessary, then don't focus on that. Only focus on your story, on your characters, on your dialogues, and whatever is needed to be told in order to get that story across. And finally, I would like to add, don't feel sad if your first scripts don't work or kind of suck. It's normal. It happens to everyone. It has happened to the best. Just, Chuck Jones, he's the creator of the Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny, and he's an animator. And he used to say that every artist has 10,000 bad drawings inside. And then once you get all of those 10,000 drawings out of your system, you start actually making the good drawings. So I believe that there's something similar to screenwriting. Of course, I really hope hope that it's not 10,000 screenplays, but just get those bad screenplays out of your system and get a lot of practice. Start writing. Don't be afraid. If you fail, just use it as a learning experience. And I promise that it will pay off in the future, a year or two from now, when you write and then you read your first scripts and you're like, man, like I've really actually grown, and it's gonna feel amazing. It happened to me, and yeah. So just have that mindset that it's something that you're developing for the future, and that you're growing every time you're writing. So, you know, don't be hard on yourself. It has happened to all of us. So yeah, screenwriting is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Be patient. Now, would you guys want me to actually make a video series on more of like structured screenwriting class, like explaining the 3-act structures, explaining the hero's journey, character development, character arcs, etc.? If you would be interested in that, let me know in the comments. Anyway, remember to share this video with someone who might find it useful, and if you liked it, it would really help if you would gently click that like button. It would mean a lot. I make videos like this every single week, sometimes even multiple times a week, so consider subscribing. Hit me up on social media at Diego_ALCMAN. Shoot me a DM, say hello. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one. Cheers.